Hey guys, and welcome to Confirmation for our first week. Today we're going to be looking at something really cool. It's about how we live our life like before Jesus, when we accept Jesus, and then what does our life look like after we've decided to follow after Jesus. And we're going to be looking at it in comparison to a house. So John Wesley, he was kind of the founder of the whole Methodist Church. He lived hundreds of years ago. And when he used to talk about this very thing, about our kind of journey toward Christ, he would talk about it in relationship to a house. He would say the front porch is kind of like the moments before we decide to accept Jesus in our life. It's those times in our life where maybe we're growing up. Maybe it's those times when we decide, maybe we don't need God and we kind of go and do our own thing. And it's those times when we have to recognize that God, even if we don't choose Him, is constantly chasing after us and loving us. I have this friend who went to Africa on a safari, which sounds really cool. And he had lots of favorite animals. He even saw giraffes and elephants and lions and hyenas and all those things. But one of the coolest animals that really made an impression on him was a wild dog. Now, wild dogs are kind of interesting. They're not really pretty, but man, they can have endurance like nothing else. As a matter of fact, when they're chasing after their prey, they are not the strongest or the fastest, but they will wear out their prey. They'll just chase after them, and they can just go on longer than anybody else. Eventually, the animal just has to give up and fall over. And kind of the front porch of our life, as we're thinking about whether Jesus is to be a part of it, is kind of like those moments when we recognize that God is like the wild dog and He's chasing after us. And He loves us so much, He cares for us so much, that He's willing to run and run and run and run until ultimately we're utterly exhausted of trying to live our lives on our own. And ultimately, we have to come to the point we think about, do we want to finally just stop and surrender and allow God to take over? Or do we just want to continue to live our life on our own realm and see how that goes? But then, after we kind of come to the point when we're kind of thinking of the front porch and thinking about whether we even want God in our life or not, we get to the point when we get to the front door. And the front door is like accepting Jesus. The front door is kind of like finally surrendering your life, falling down to the wild dogs, finally allowing God, who's been chasing after us from the moment that we were born, finally surrender to God's plan for our life. And when we get to that front door, we're making a very conscious decision. Are we going to be a person who lives the rest of our life following Jesus or not? And the front door is very important. Many of you, maybe you have thought about this and you're like, I've been preparing for this my entire life. I'm so ready to live my life and follow after Jesus. And if that's you, that's great. But for some of us, entering that door is kind of a hard decision. Is following after Jesus something that we really want to do with our life or not? Now, I think it's worth it. I think living our own way of life out here on the porch just gets messy. It can lead to a lot of hurt. It can lead to a lot of problems in our life. And I ultimately think if we're willing to choose to go through that door, then we can follow Jesus' way of life, and it's the best way of life for us. It gives us a purpose for our life. It gives us a reason to get out of bed in the morning to follow after Jesus. It gives us a way to be healthier. It helps us to have better friends. It helps us to have better relationships with girlfriends, ultimately with a spouse. It helps us to be better family members. It helps us to be better students. It helps us be better neighbors. Ultimately, following the way of Jesus helps us in every aspect of our life. But I can't make that decision for you. Your parents can't make that decision. Neither can your grandparents. You have to decide for yourself. Are you willing to go through the door or not? All right, next we're going to check out what it looks like inside the house.